Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bothell City Council meeting for January 13th. Join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it is a pleasure to see everybody this evening. I almost don't recognize some of you, maybe for the lack of time or the ties, but I'm not quite sure. So we do have a full council, which is a pleasure, and we do have not as a full agenda, but hopefully everybody had the opportunity to look over what is before us tonight. Any changes, additions, subtractions? Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd like to pull consent agenda item 15005, the consider approval of the inmate housing interlocal agreement with the city of Linwood.
Okay.
And then I also wanted to ask if the city manager was prepared to talk in an executive session tonight to give us an update on the status of surplus property sale. I'd send him an email, and just curious if that's something that you are prepared to do tonight.
I can.
Okay, so if we could add an executive session at the end.
Perfect. We'll do that for her property. Yeah, perfect. Real estate matters. Anything else?
Just things on the projected agenda, unless somebody else has something for today's.
Anyone else for tonight? Changes? Projected agenda, Councilmember Sandberg.
So on the projected agenda, I was curious as to when council will be starting review of the comprehensive plan amendments. It looks like there's a status report scheduled for the March 3rd meeting, and I was wondering if it would be possible to move that up, maybe start our review in February, at least with a status report. I noticed in the Woodinville Weekly that the Woodinville City Council has already started their comprehensive plan review process and has added another meeting in their months between now and June 30th, when the comprehensive plan is due. And for the benefit of the public, they've published that their second meeting will be devoted to comprehensive plan topics. And so I thought maybe March 3rd is a bit of a late start for us. Possibly if we could get started a little bit earlier and follow Woodinville's example about setting some advanced dates on when we'll be reviewing the comprehensive plan and taking public input.
Great, thank you. At this point, I don't see that we'll move it from the current agenda. If there's an ability to move it forward, we could, but based upon the workload in front of us, as we have a lot going in the city, this is what we've already put to our staff and the timeline I think that they can operate under. So.
I would just like to make a suggestion then for when we're making projected agendas, March and beyond, that we put in the projected agenda specific dates so that the public knows when we will be discussing the comprehensive plan between March and the June 30th deadline, and if we could somehow advertise that in the local papers, that would be great.
Great. Anything else on the projected agenda?
Yeah, I see that there's a selection of an arts committee on the February 3rd agenda, and I was wondering, does that refer to the arts installations at City Hall or for Horse Creek, or both? I see that we have some agenda items related to maybe design of art elements for the Horse Creek project as well. So maybe if you could describe what the arts committee is, that'd be great.
That is specific just to the City Hall project.
Okay.
Although they could offer advice and input on the Horse Creek project, but that particular agenda item is specific to the City Hall project.
And is there an application online if people are interested in applying to participate in the arts committee?
It's closed. I'd have to report back to the council on how staff solicited the board that we're bringing forward to recommend.
Okay.
But that'll be part of the agenda packet that you receive when we ask you to appoint certain members to that group.
So there's this professional services contract for design of arts elements for Horse Creek that is yet unscheduled. I think it's maybe for the second quarter. And if we're going to be convening an arts committee for the City Hall installation, that would also be a good thing to get community involvement on the design of art elements for Horse Creek, and something that the arts committee could also participate in.
Potentially, but much like the City Hall project, there are elements in the City Hall which are being incorporated and designed by architects and designers, and there are other elements that are more discretionary elements in which we're seeking input from the Arts Commission. So I think you may find something very similar on the Horse Creek project, where those are really sort of functional elements, whether it be sidewalks or lighting, that likely don't lend themselves as well to an Arts Commission. And are better suited for simply the designer or the architect to provide sort of art elements as a function of the project. So again, what you'll be receiving in February is the Arts Commission to do work specifically on the City Hall. But to the extent there are elements that lend themselves to a group on Horse Creek project, the same group could be formed and assembled by the council.
Thank you. And then there's one last item on the projected agenda that I'd like to get some direction on. We have unscheduled in the first quarter agenda items a couple of contracts for both construction and management services for improvements to the Bothell Everett Highway and 228th intersection improvements, and that's on consent agenda. And then there's also something about a construction contract for the 228th corridor safety improvements. And we have received a lot of comment, or there's public interest on the update and the improvement of that intersection at Bothell Everett Highway and 228th. And so I would like for us to, instead of just considering these contract and management service contracts on consent agenda, I would like for us to have a study session where these designs can be presented and that members of the public can take a look at these designs and comment on them prior to us awarding contracts.
State your last request, please, again.
To schedule a study session item where if we're looking at a construction contract and management service contract coming up, it means that, in my mind, we've already done some design. We have design work done. And it would be great to show that design work to the public, because the public has demonstrated a lot of interest about improvements to that particular intersection. And so what I would like is to have a study session item where we get to see that design and the public gets to see that design. We could also have like a little mini open house before a council meeting where pictures could be on display and the public could come and look at that and ask staff questions informally. I just would like there to be an opportunity for the public to look at this design, since they have had a significant interest in it.
I just wonder if we're already down the line. And I mean, we have standards of design for intersections, and I imagine our staff has already gone through it. But Steve, would you have any comments on that this evening, with how far we progressed and if it really is appropriate to potentially even mislead the public that we'd be looking for changes?
Yes, good evening. Those two projects are pretty much completed in design. We're actually trying to work with property owners to get temporary construction easements. That's what's kind of holding us up. The designs themselves are not, there's not much leeway there, because these are safety. This was part of the safety federal grant we got. And literally it has to do with things like putting backings behind traffic signals or reorienting channelization for driving. And in the 228 Bothell Everett Highway instance, adding a left turn lane. There's not too much leeway. We can move things around and fit everything in there. I mean, we need to meet the design criteria that's required for those, the traffic performance and everything. I think it probably is a good idea, like we do for other projects, is to have a public open house just before we start construction, so that everybody knows what's going to go on, and then they can ask questions about how it's going to go on, how am I going to be affected, and that sort of thing. But I'm not sure there's much leeway in design changes that we could make.
I guess I'm not suggesting that, we invite the public for them to come look at the design and make significant changes. I just think that we need to take the opportunity to explain what's going on, and I would like to know what that is before, as it comes to us for approval for a construction and management services contract.
So you'll have that opportunity. Councilmember Lamb?
Hey, Steve, thanks for your suggestion. So I think it sounds like what you're saying is that an open house will, prior to construction, will provide a lot of that in the sense of providing the community an opportunity to see what changes are going to be made, kind of the timeline that would be and what it's ultimately going to look like. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've done that for several of our past projects, and they seem to work pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm supportive of that approach. I mean, as somebody who actually uses that intersection on a regular basis and is frustrated with that intersection, I don't want to do anything that's going to delay the safety repairs, because I've seen accidents at that intersection, and I think having I don't want to do anything that's going to delay us approving that contract and getting that contract moving as quickly as possible to get those safety improvements in place. So I support that approach of having an open house where people can come in and learn about the changes. But the main thing I'm concerned about is the speed and making sure that we get in some safety changes very, very quickly, and I don't want to do anything to slow that down.
Yep. Thanks. Anybody else on this subject? Councilmember Evans?
Just quickly, it is a high-interest project to the community, because I've a lot of friends that live in that area, and I've got a lot of comments, and I've been telling them this project is coming in 2015 and will be done. And I think this is a little different. Instead of doing a master plan for a park or a site plan, it's the right-of-way is what we have to work with. I guess I don't think we weren't asking to change the design, but merely to inform the public of what's going on. So I think the open house is a great idea. I don't know if there's an article or something we can get out ahead of time that this is coming, because it is of interest. But the main thing is the public's aware of what's happening and what the timetable will be and those types of things. It is to be completed in 2015, I think, correct?
Correct.
So whatever we can do to get that information out, I think would be great.
Excellent. Anybody else on the projected agenda? All right, seeing no further changes. We do have a visitor section. I do have several sign-ups this evening. Nice to see some familiar and some new faces here. We do ask folks to come address council. We give each speaker about 3 minutes, and then, if you're open to it, questions afterwards. So the first person on the sign-up sheet is John Fowler. I do have your address for the record. Mr. Fowler, nice to see you.
Thank you. Am I on?
Is the green light on the...
No.
Just tap the little push button.
Am I on now? Now
Yes,
it's green light. Okay. Hi, my name is John Fowler. I have some information. Can I pass out? Do I hand this to the clerk?
The clerk, absolutely, and then we'll just pass it down the line.
And can I also give this to the sorry.
City manager? Or,
actually the
to the
fire chief. Police
Oh,
chief.
yes.
So I'm the CEO and founder of Securite Luxury Gun Club. Some of you are aware of, we're coming into town. We're under permitting right now with the city. We've submitted our SEPA and our civils, and what else do we have in there? We have a couple other applications in. But what I want to do is introduce myself to what is coming to your town, the first of its kind, with a state-of-the-art facility that will be catering to law enforcement, the community, and families. We're here to provide a safe and secure environment where we're going to enhance the skills of the community and the law enforcement, and also increase awareness. Our goal is to be an educational institution. What we're doing is, part of the facility is a 2-story facility, and we are creating what is the use of all the technology that's out there for air filtration, total containment trap systems, recycling of lead, and also the brass within the facility. And then also, we are, what do I got reading my notes here? we want to become involved with the community in regards to teaching those that are around us what it's like to be an owner of a firearm. And our goal, we have a training regime that's been designed by our team. It's a 9-member team. We have with the advisory board, the directors, and also the founders in design. But one of our team members, Dennis Brislon, is a gun law attorney that has designed a program called Citizen Defender. And he will be talking about that tonight. But what I'd like to do is talk about, we had an economic study done on our facility and what we're bringing to the community. And the total project that we're doing is estimated at $12 million. With what they call the PLAM economic study, we are creating 122 new jobs for King County over a 24-month period of time. Our projected gross receipts for the city of Bothell will be exceeding hopefully $10 million a year. And then as part of what we're doing with the training, we have created a tactical facility for law enforcement. And what that means is I have spent some time. Is that me?
That is you, and
Oh.
Can you explain a little bit more about the tactical facility that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the
Because that looks
tactical
over here.
the tactical facility was.
Curiosity piqued
I
up.
spent some time with Seattle SWAT, and we went through their facility down at the south end of Boeing Field. And what we've done is we've taken what they have and what they lack and have designed it within our facility. Meaning, we can take in SWAT trucks, squad cars, and provide them with the space to train around those vehicles with live fire and simulate what would be a situational awareness type of area. So we can, create in alleys, what it would like to have the noise distractions from above, squad car lights, just general noises that they would encounter in a situation for training. And then with that, we would hopefully be able to provide the facility to be open 24 hours for them to train in. So depending on what their availability is, we would like to be able to offer it up after retail hours.
So I look at the pictures of what you have here, and I mean, it looks like a beautiful facility, nice lounges and entry area. Where do you do this tactical training?
Inside the facility.
So a basement?
No, it's ground floor. This is a slab-on-grade building. It's 32,000 square feet, 16,000 down, 16,000 up. The main floor will have a entrance for cars to come into the facility. It'll close. They've designed the sound abatement around the facility, so because of the retail experience we want to have, which we consider to be more of a Nordstrom style retail experience, we need to have and condense the sound just inside the actual training part of the facility. So we've used Action Targets out of Utah that has designed the sound abatement for inside the facility for us.
We actually had somebody come in, it's been almost a month now, I think, who spoke here to address the council, who had concerns regards to, I think it was sound, lead poisoning, and I don't recall what the third was, but I remember I was surprised with the lead poisoning. I don't know how a gun club could cause an issue with lead poisoning to the surrounding community. And then the sound, if you're an indoor facility, how has that been addressed? You said you had a consultant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
what's the lead poisoning concern? I didn't get into details with them.
there was an article published recently about a surrounding or a local range that went through some issues with their recycling of the lead in the bullet traps. And so what we've designed or had designed for the facility is a bullet trap system where we will not acquire any accumulation of lead. So what that means is a projectile goes downrange. It goes into a total containment trap system that has augers in it that have a little bit of water that runs through these things, takes the projectile, drops it into the water auger, and sends it out to recycle buckets or 55-gallon drums at either end of the bullet traps that then are picked up by an outside recycling service depending on the schedule of use. But it could be weekly, it could be daily, it could be monthly. Just depends on the volume that goes through the trapping system. But what it does is we don't have the lead in the facility in a bullet trap where it is now contained and captured and concealed in 55-gallon drums and then removed immediately.
Any other questions? No. Councilmember Sandberg.
Is there a reason why you won't consider lead-free ammunition at your facility?
No, it will be, we won't all be lead-free, but we can use lead-free. So the lead smeltering plants no longer exist. They closed, last one closed in December of 2013. So what you have now is all the lead that's out there is being recycled, and most of it's recycled for batteries. So what you'll see is there will be lead bullets, but they're phasing those out because the new bullets that are being manufactured are lead-free. So what you have is reloaders, and the recycling of the lead that we're removing and getting credit for will then turn around and be redone again in certain ammunition locations.
I guess I would just figure that if you wanted to have that cachet of a high-end experience, going as a lead-free facility might offer that experience to your customers. The Seattle Times did do an extensive series on lead and lead poisoning in gun facilities, specifically a facility in Bellevue, where it wasn't just users of the gun club and employees of the gun club, but contractors who had gone in to work on air handling units, construction workers, and the potential to have that lead pollution spread into the surrounding community because of faulty air handling equipment is real. And so I would encourage your organization to offer that very high-end experience as a lead-free experience.
Right, but also a part of, as of now, to be a lead-free would take the public's ability to purchase the bullets because the price is extremely high. So now what you've done is you've economically removed what would be a new shooter, beginners, people that haven't really figured out if they want to be firearm owners yet, out of the equation. And I don't think that would be fair either. But again, the bullets are being remanufactured when copper and lead is moving its way out because the smeltering plants no longer exist.
But it sounds like that the lead will not be phasing out anytime soon.
I don't know. I'm not a manufacturer of bullets.
And the location of your gun club is?
We are at 12030 Northeast Woodinville Drive.
Which is on the Sammamish River?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Great. John, thank you so much for coming this evening. Next person on the sign-up sheet is Dennis Brislon. We have your address for the record already.
Hi, my name's Dennis Brislon, 10900 Northeast 4th Street, Suite 1430, Bellevue, 98004. Proud resident of unincorporated Woodinville, but almost Bothell. So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'm a local attorney. I've been in practice 27 years. Prior to that, I was a military officer. I was a former Army Ranger, among other things. And today, I'm very active in search and rescue. I've met our fire chief here and others, I think, from time to time. I know a lot of people in the rescue community. The reason I'm here isn't so much because of the gun club, it's because of what my life has been post-active duty military and then now as a member of the volunteer rescue community. I've been doing a lot of thinking about readiness and disasters, and I've been in a couple. Probably my wife would tell you I'd caused a couple. But you know, all truth be told, there's 80 to 100 million gun owners out there. I own a company with some friends nationally that supports 5,000 estate and business planning attorneys. We do trusts and estates and wills and business planning. It really comes down to readiness and neighbors being prepared to help neighbors. With 80 to 100 million gun owners out there, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people that are an opportunity for good or for ill. John found out that I was teaching lawyers about possession and transfer issues. I mean, estate planning issues involving firearms. And said, gee, I heard you were working with some SWAT guys and other people on a training regimen to bring the law down to the context of a tool. And I said, yes, I am. In fact, I think attorneys need to be out there teaching people how to use the law in the context of lawful self-defense. You notice I'm not really talking about guns. I'm talking about just being a good neighbor and being a self-defender and really understanding the role of force in society, what you can do, what you can't do, what you should do, what you should not do. John wanted to make that a centerpiece of this gun club. I agreed to be a member of the board for that reason. In fact, I intend that Bothell is going to play a role in the rollout to some of the attorneys using my national company's software of a self-defense system that's about context. Lawyers don't teach people context. What do you do in and around your home, in and around your neighborhood, when you're confronted with events? How do you handle them? I'm not talking about pulling out a firearm and using it. I'm talking about the whole context of an event. So in conjunction with law enforcement, some of my many folks from the special operations community that I've stayed in touch with, we decided we wanted a civilian-based regime about using the law as part of your response kit. It's about being a good neighbor. Now, the people we're catering to at the club here are firearms owners, but I would submit to you that those are the very people you want to be the best neighbors possible, and that's what we're going to make a centerpiece of this club. So I'm the trainer. I'm the guy putting together the law-based training backed up by scenario-based gun instructor training. But it isn't about guns. It's just about the proper response to events that you find yourself in.
Excellent. I thank you so much for coming this evening and enlightening us. We've heard from others about what is coming, and appreciate your investment in Bothell, and it looks like it will be a top-rate facility.
Yep.
I hope to visit at some point.
Well, you're all welcome.
All right. Excellent. Great. Thank you. Next person on the sign-up sheet is Manny Ocampo. Manny, we have your address and know where you live.
And I know where you all live, too. I, as the council is probably aware, I served on a citizen committee in support of the Parks and Public Spaces levy that was unsuccessful last year. However, I'm here as a Bothell resident, not as a representative of the committee. I'm not even sure the committee is still constituted. First of all, I'd like to say that the committee worked very hard, and I believe ran a very credible and truthful campaign. And there are a lot of reasons why I believe the vote was not successful, and I don't want to go into a lot of them here. And I am aware that the council is contemplating what should happen next with these important proposed projects. Your retreat is upcoming, and this may be one of the items on the retreat agenda. So I thought I'd come and within 3 minutes, provide you with just some food for thought as you begin this process. I know there are a lot of moving parts in any decision that the council makes regarding funding, regarding infrastructure planning, and capital improvements. I believe that combining the parks and public spaces, while a very sound strategic move, did confuse the community to some extent. However, I do want to say that both of those elements of the levy were very, very sound. And I believe that if they were separated, that both would stand a much better chance of passing. Both can stand on their own. And I believe that would eliminate the confusion and allow the committees, probably two, to focus on the value and the return on investment in each of those areas. In fact, I would be willing to serve on the Public Spaces Committee if that was what the direction the council wanted to go, because I believe there's a strong case to be made of why it's so important for these infrastructure improvements and these public spaces, and the value that they bring to the community, not just the business community, not just the businesses that are adjacent, but to the entire community, as all of our infrastructure and streets do. So we need to hone that message. I believe that a strong campaign could be made for each. The parks, again, as you probably remember, I am a parks guy, and I believe that part of the levy would be very, very successful. Even those who came out against the levy indicated that they were very, very supportive of parks. I believe we could make the case for each of those elements of the levy for spending $4 or $5 a month, a return on the investment that would be long-term and very, very important to the quality of life in Bothell. I'd be glad to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Manny. Anybody have questions? Oh, good. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
You'll hear from us. Next person on the sign-up sheet is Sandy Gwynn. Ms. Gwynn, nice to see you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have some decisions coming up with regards to the Regional Fire Authority. And there was only one meeting we didn't have Bothell representation, and that was at the September 4th meeting. And during that RFA September 4th meeting, some of these issues that you'll be facing was discussed. So I have transcribed about an hour and 22 minutes of a 2-hour meeting. I'm depositing on the record for you so you can read it verbatim. In summary, though, it started out with the chair asking if there were any issues that members have seen so far that can potentially be showstoppers or issues that could derail the process. The first item discussed was the labor contract. Question was, would the RFA look at comparable agencies of our size if we combine? And it was my understanding they did not use a comparable size like Bellevue, but they used Kirkland and Redmond. And please, any member, correct me if I'm misspeaking. One of the members had said, I guess what I'm assuming, though, is you say, for example, that our RFA would be comparable to Bellevue, size of the department, and then you look at what their compensation is, and that is probably what we would have to pay. It was further commented by someone else, that doesn't say that the next time the contract opens for negotiations that you are not going to pull out new comps and look at different size organizations and go from there as you would in any other negotiation. I do not think that labor is anxious or anything or expecting to get a jackpot on the first go-around of the contract. I'm also going to submit a memo from North Shore Fire District to the Finance Subcommittee. And in it, they have about 5 areas that they would like to have revenue up front. The first one is for loss of revenue, 25% of the annual expense budget. And it's not clear to me what loss of revenue would constitute. But one thing that jumps to my mind is, what if, when the RFA gets formed, the unions go, no, we're comparable to Bellevue. What you have based your levy and benefit charge on is this amount of Kirkland and Redmond, but we are the size of Bellevue, and I believe state statute kind of governs the comparables. At least that's what I've been involved with. So I'm going to deposit this. Can I wrap it up really quick?
Sure, take 20 seconds, I guess, to wrap it
Okay.
up. Thanks.
Third issue was a station location study. I'm also depositing that. And the fourth issue was that we have a level of service that is excellent. We have some areas that we can improve physical footprint, but we are not forming the RFA because we have a big performance problem that we have to solve. That is a positive deal. On the other hand, it is somewhat of a negative deal because I am the average Joe citizen. Why are we changing it if it is not broke? So, again, I'm giving you the minutes, I'm giving you the station location study, and the North Shore memo. Do you have any questions for me?
We have one. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. Are you okay taking a question?
Sure.
So, Sandy, I appreciate you followed this issue very closely, and you've spoken a lot on it, and you've shared your views with us a lot. And I have just one question for you. Assuming that the RFA does not go forward, assuming that we don't have it, what would be your plan for the fire department then? Or do you have any thoughts on that, or is it just that you don't like the idea of an RFA, or do you, because we have, obviously, with the expansion in our city to the south, we actually do have a coverage problem there with the new, we don't have the closest fire station to people in the southern part of our city is in Woodinville, not in Bothell now. So I'm just wondering, is that something that you've given thought to, or are you kind of focused on this, and then if that doesn't come to pass, then you'll come back with
I
other
will
ideas on
respond in you have a couple of layers of questions. What surprised me was the station location study didn't really show a significant difference under the different scenarios that they analyzed. That was really surprising. And so one of my questions was going to be to the council, is that your same understanding when you read the station location?
And I apologize, that wasn't my question to you.
Well, you had made a comment, so I will answer your question, but when you have a comment in there, I would like to respond, because that was not my understanding. Then the question with regards to the fire department, I have started this with ask Bothell residents first, because the area as a whole will vote. Bothell is a portion of that area.
So
And
my question assumes the RFA has failed. There's no RFA. There's no need to ask Bothell voters because it's not moving forward. That's the assumption of my question. So my question to you is, if that comes to pass, because that's obviously what you would like to have come to pass, what would we then ask Bothell voters if there's not going to be an RFA question? What next?
What next?
Yeah.
I would kind of turn it back to you.
I thought so. That's what I suspected.
Well, because I've been hearing these different things, and I don't have staff to support me. I work full-time, I go to
So do I.
doctors, I go to physical therapy.
So do I.
And I don't have staff that supports my questions. I have to do public records requests. So I don't have all this information. I am coming to you, though, to ask you that. With regards to the increased valuations, it has been stated that as we get more density and we have increased valuations, it has been stated that this will pay for the additional services that the fire department needs. So those aren't my words. This is what I'm hearing.
Councilmember Sandberg.
So that would,
Councilmember Sandberg has a question for you if you're open for it.
I'd like to thank you for your time in transcribing an hour-plus meeting for us to help us understand the issues. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm not getting the impression that you are entirely opposed to the RFA. The impression I'm getting is that you want to have a robust public process. And so I think that having that robust public process addresses Councilmember Lamb's question about, well, if it's not an RFA, then what? Well, then we have to engage the public and clearly describe what the problem is. If there's a financial deficit, if there's a need for a new station located in the south end, but we have to communicate with the public and sell a case that if an RFA doesn't pass and we need additional funds to provide services, that's a case that we will need to make with the public. And so I'm not hearing you say you don't want an RFA. What I'm hearing is that you want a robust public process, and I hope that's what we will deliver.
that is part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Spivey.
Great, thank you. Thanks for being here, Sandy. The couple things. One is I caution even members of the RFA Planning Committee. Most people do not understand the collective bargaining laws and how comparables work. There will not be just one comparable in that process. There will be multiple comparables. And as somebody who is quite familiar with the
the compensation package in Bellevue, I can assure you that there's 8 organizations that are smaller in population. The department themselves is smaller. The cities that they cover for are smaller, that have higher compensation packages than the city of Bellevue. So I caution people to say, well, the city of Bellevue, because I think Redmond and Kirkland are at or above the city of Bellevue. And if you want to compare them, then you might be asking for a higher rate. So I caution people to wait before they start talking about like city of Bellevue or city of Seattle, thinking that they're the highest compensated because they're bigger. That's not the case. So everybody, even on the planning committee, needs to be careful of that fact that they think just because an organization is bigger, that means a bigger compensation package, and that's not true.
Could you explain what the 25% upfront for potential revenue loss is?
I wasn't. Unfortunately, I had to work at that meeting, and I don't know the context of that, and so I can't speak to that. So, but I just wanted to make sure that people understand that the comparables, there's more than one, and that just because bigger doesn't mean more expensive as far as compensation packages. And that's where I'm hearing a lot of information, even on the planning committee. They think that Bellevue has this huge compensation package, and actually other smaller organizations have bigger compensation packages in Bellevue. So please be careful of that. As far as, we do have, and it has been shown in the station location study, that there is a hole in the south end that affects Bothell, Woodinville, and North Shore. That was stated in that study.
It was stated that in the study there were gaps. There's 3 known gaps. But by moving the stations around, adding a station, even showing one with one less station, but moving the stations around for the optimum service, I don't think anything jumped out that would correct it.
It may not have corrected all the gaps, but it did correct some gaps, and the most glaring gap is the one that all 3 organizations have a pretty significant gap in. And so there's a lot of information out there that it's difficult for the planning committee members to take all this information in and keep it straight and to move forward with it. So I appreciate your efforts, and I just, again, we have to be careful of the different components, because there's a lot of misrepresentation or misunderstanding as far as some of the other items. It's just your comment about bring it to Bothell first. We have by law there's a process, and you don't know what you can bring to the voters until you go through the process. And so to say that the Bothell has to have it first, we still have to go through this whole process. And everybody has that opportunity, and this body here is the ones that will, through public input, make a decision as to whether to put it on the ballot, and that's part of the process. But it's a process that's it's long, it's time consuming, it's very involved, and we're not all the way through it yet. So we'll get there.
I think one recommendation I would make is not to have so many subcommittee meetings, but to have...
That's the only way the work's going to get done. Yeah,
and then you're going to have these general meetings where the subcommittees come back and make a report. I mean, I only had 3 minutes to comment, but these were subcommittee reports that came back.
I understand that, but the work doesn't get done if you have a whole committee doing every one of these things, and the process gets drawn out to probably a 4-year process at that point. And this methodology so far has been the most efficient that's been provided through the RFA Planning Committee process. And I understand your recommendation, but it's also been found that you have to move in a timely manner, and by having the full committee handle every process through it has not been the efficient manner, and that you lose committee members, and then the whole thing dies.
We need to wrap up this subject. Ms. Quinn, thank you so much for coming in this evening. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. I just will deposit these, and again, recommend you find a way to ask the public first.
All right. Anybody else from the public like to address council this evening? Just raise your hand. It's fun. No? All right, then moving on. On the consent agenda, everything is in place except for item F was pulled. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lamb, a second by Councilmember Evans. All in favor, if you could place your vote under clerk and display. Passes unanimously. Councilmember Sandberg, you pulled item AB 15005 to consider approval of an inmate housing interlocal agreement with the city of Linwood. What questions do you have?
I had submitted some questions to the city manager in advance of the meeting, and I was hoping to get those answers.
I think we do have a police department representative, Mike Johnson, who can respond to that, but our chief, Carol Cummings, also sent out a reply, which I forwarded to all the council members prior to the meeting.
Okay. I guess I didn't receive it. I don't know what time you sent it, but
I got it this afternoon.
so you sent it today? Pardon? Do you have a copy of it?
I do.
When was it sent? The 12th or 13th?
Is it something that we have to decide tonight, or can we just postpone it until next week? We're also considering next week some other police department issues with a professional services agreement for probation services. Maybe we could just postpone this until next week?
What?
I do have a copy of it. It was sent on, looks like on Monday at 1:56 p.m.
And
I didn't receive it, so.
Councilmember
Okay.
Ray.
I do have a copy of it if you'd like to see it.
Councilmember Lamb received it. What were your main concerns that you would be objecting to having it go to a motion this evening?
So the cost of the contract is $1.16 million over 2 years. And then just doing a little bit of math, if the daily jailing cost is $95 a day, then I just wanted to know, are we really using 12,212 jail days over the biennium? Or is the detention services budget costs cover other costs?
I prefer Councilmember Evans.
I think one thing, that budget was for the entire detention services that covered several facilities. So,
And then and I understood that, and then there's, different costs per day for different facilities. So, but it ranges anyway from like $95 to $115 a day. It's not a big range, or $140 a day.
I think Sunnyside went down to
Yeah.
65 or something a day.
So even if you just take the average of those different facilities, I was just surprised to hear that we pay, if you take that $1.16 million divided by a daily fee, that's about 12,000 jail days over the biennium. And do we have that much of a crime problem in Bothell that we have to use 12,000 jail days?
It's more than maintenance days. So a
Okay.
booking fee is more than a maintenance day. So to put you in jail,
It's $10, $10 booking fee.
no, it's more than that unless it's Sunnyside Jail. So the 1.1 something million dollars is spread through every jail facility that we utilize, not just the Linwood Jail contract.
So when I look at the Linwood Jail contract, the daily fee is $85, and then so it says this new agreement increases the daily bed rate per day to $85 and maintains the booking fee of $10. And then it also tells us, there's other booking arrangements that are more expensive, $141 per day in King County versus $66 per day in Snohomish County.
Yes.
All I was doing was taking the cost of the contract, which is $1.16 million, and dividing it by roughly the average,
My
the
understanding
average
is
cost.
the contract for Linwood isn't 1.1 million. That's our budget for all of our custody, the contract for Linwood.
So if you take that overall budget of the $1.16 million and you divide it by an average daily fee, whether it's Linwood or Sunnyside or whatever, you come out to about 12,000 jail days over the biennium. And so I was just curious, are we really having to use 12,000 jail
Well,
days?
Yeah, I would have to defer to Tammy on the math. I'm not sure what your calculation was or what Tammy's calculation would be, but I know that you can't just extrapolate the maintenance day times how many days we're going to have people in jail, because there's all kinds of other fees that are associated with medical care and going to the dentist and getting people booked there. And if there's a fee for their bus to come and pick the person up to drive them over there, there's a lot of money that goes out that's not just the standard maintenance day.
Okay.
If I may, so I sent an email to Chief Cummings as well, and she gave a fairly detailed response about the number of people who are in jail on a nightly basis, what those costs are, and break those down. I thought Councilmember Sandberg was copied on that. If she's not, I'm happy to share that with her as well, and I think it answers a lot of the questions that have been put forward tonight.
Yeah, I think one of the big things I can say to quickly address the total dollar amount that Councilmember Sandberg is concerned about is the complexity of which, and the I guess heinousness is the word, Councilmember Lyme's attorney, the heinousness of the crimes we're now seeing in our court. The felony prosecutors for Snohomish County and King County are now kicking back more. We have sort of labeled them as feloniers. It's a felony, but we're not going to charge it. So if you want to put the person in jail, you can charge it. And so what it is in the past, the county has picked up the tab for you to go to jail for assault on a police officer, but now they're saying, no, really, it was just a misdemeanor assault, so we can charge it at Bothell. Now we're picking up the fee for that jail stay, where in the past we haven't. So there's more and more and more and more of those coming to this court every day. And so that cost is getting passed on to us. And with what has happened in Snohomish County Jail, the jails, the custody facilities have decided we have to change how we operate. We have to do different things. And Snow County and King County are going to a tiered booking system. So if you're just regular run-of-the-mill inmate, then it's this amount. If you're got a medical issue now, well, to book you, we're going to take you, but now it's going to be this amount. And God forbid you have a medical or a mental issue, you're going to be now this highest dollar amount because we have to put you in a special wing with special monitoring and all those kinds of things. So all that factors into the $1.1 million.
And then I'd asked a historical question, but I guess it's in here about what historically our detention services contract has been. So if it's 1.16 million for this biennium, what has it been in previous bienniums? It sounds like the costs are going up significantly because of the complexity of the cases that are being pushed onto the cities and the complexity of the actual people that are going
and understand
to jail.
We're doing everything we can to mitigate that. We have 2 police support officers who are our transport people, and they work the system like some kind of magic, and they are aware of every booking fee and every inmate that's going every which direction, and they have found the efficiencies in moving people to Sunnyside. That was something that we did to save money. Instead of booking all of our misdemeanors in King County as the most expensive jail, even if it's the most convenient, we take them up to Snohomish County Jail because historically they've been the least expensive. And so we've done everything we can to try to mitigate that. In fact, we're hoping for about a $200,000 savings by increasing the amount of people that are going over to Sunnyside Jail to reduce that number down to the 1.1. So we're doing everything we possibly can to mitigate that cost.
And I thank you for that. And I'm not asking the question because I think it's too high. I'm asking the question because I genuinely don't know. And when I do simple math and I come up with, wow, there's that many days, it gives me a greater appreciation for the work that you do. And I think that it's important for our community to also have that understanding so that, we all can have a greater appreciation for what you do, because this stuff is getting increasingly more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think taxpayers are willing to pay for things when they know what they're paying for. And so my questions weren't designed to, make you feel like you're spending too much money and that number should be lower. It's really just for understanding. So I appreciate you, taking that time to answer those questions. And I think, this is the kind of stuff that I know that comes out in the police department's annual report. And I think this is the kind of information that's really important for the community to understand. Because we want to be supportive of our public safety, but we need to know that it's expensive and why it's expensive, and that's the part of the education process.
And some of that's outside our control. Like recently, last year it went into effect that for someone who has a second DUI arrest is now a mandatory booking, and they're held without bail. So if we book them on a Thursday, they are going to, and Thanksgiving, they're going to sit in jail till Monday, and we're going to be eating that. Where in the past, it could have been a situation where we say, okay, well, they get booked in and they get released on bail or personal recognizance or some form thereof. So now that's going to increase the jail fee even more, and that's outside of we're mandated by law to book these people into jail and tell the custody staff, you have to hold them without bail. So they will sit until they can see the judge.
Okay, thank you.
You ready to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the inmate housing interlocal agreement with the City of Linwood.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if everybody could pace their vote. Clerk can display. Thank you so much. That ends the consent agenda items. We have new business. First on the list is AB 15006, a confirmation of agenda for annual council retreat. City Manager, are you leading us in that discussion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just really seeking council's input regarding the proposed agenda that I provided to you for the retreat that'll be held on January 31st. You'll see it's really focusing on two matters. Those projects create for discussion about a funding strategy for the Proposition 1 projects that were included in the ballot last year, park projects, public spaces projects, and then a funding strategy and discussion about how we maintain our infrastructure within the city.
Great. Anybody have any comments? Councilmember Evans.
I talked with the city manager briefly on this today. I think we're going to be getting, with our packet, we'll be getting papers or issue papers or something on each of these and what the options may be for moving forward, which will be good to have that ahead of time to read that. I appreciate that. One thing that's been on my mind a little bit, has come up at the council several times, has been our public input process. How do we get the public more involved in budget meetings or comprehensive planning sessions or whatever the case may be? And I think it's very important to get that involvement, but I also know from past experience it's very hard to get their involvement. I can't tell you the number of public meetings or workshops I've attended that, whether it be park master plans or whatever the case may be, you may get 5 or 10 people. At the bond issue meetings that I went to, we maybe had 10 or 12 people at those meetings, So it's really difficult to get the public involved. And I guess one thing that would be interesting for me at this session would be, and we've talked a little bit about what our current practices are for advertising to the public of meetings and that type of thing. But I guess if staff had the time, or if somebody could research what other communities are doing to reach out to the public, how can we do expand our ability to reach the public more and make them aware of what's going on and getting them involved. And my sense is that the majority of the public is very involved and busy in their own lives and things, and until something hits them directly in the face in their backyard or whatever, they just don't take the time to get involved. And we want them to be involved, we want them to hear that. But I guess if there was anything that we could discuss, have a general conversation on what are some ways that we could somehow get the word out to the public more about what's going on. And frankly, I think we do a very good job in this city, just what we're doing tonight. The fact that these meetings are televised, and I'm amazed at the people who watch these meetings and do learn a lot about the city. That isn't the case in every city. So, and we have all of our publications and our websites and all those things. So I think there's a lot of information available, but still the public doesn't get involved. So I don't know if there's a way to, if there's things that we're missing that we could do, but if there are, I'd be interested in a short discussion on that at our retreat as to are there things the staff's aware of that we could do more, or additions, way we could add things to it, whatever the case may be. I don't know if there are any. Like I say, I really do think the city does a good job, the staff does a good job in getting the word out. But are there things that we could do more to make it more available to the public? And even then, I'm not sure how much input that we'll get over the process. But at least we've made an attempt to get the word out to them more.
Great, thanks. Councilmember Lamb.
Thanks. So I really appreciate the comments of Councilor Evans. I would like to see some kind of a survey done, just kind of a general survey of people in Bothell to kind of take the temperature of where they're at. And I know as we were contemplating the Proposition 1 last year, we were very constrained as to what we could ask and kind of how we could ask it. And I think since we don't have a levy on the horizon, we might have a freer hand in terms of sort of touching base with people on where they stand. And I think Councilor Evans makes a good point in that people engage in different ways. The only metric of being involved is not somebody coming up to the dais or coming up to the speaker's podium to complain about something in the city. I think people engage by using our parks. I think people engage by becoming involved in city council campaigns or by, coming out to our festivals in our parks or using our parks, supporting and interacting with our law enforcement and with our firefighters. So I think I think that would be a useful tool, and it's something we've done in the past. I know it's something you've commissioned in the past, City Manager, was a survey, a broad survey, just kind of to take the temperature of people on a variety of issues. And I think that's a useful tool because it informs the discussion. Sometimes I think we can get too focused in on the loudest voices and not necessarily, and forget the quieter people who are busy with their families, with their jobs, with going to church, and who don't necessarily have the time or the inclination to devote a huge amount of emotional energy into city government. And I think a survey strips that away and actually engages with the public on a broader scale and gives us a good high-level view of where how people view various issues. So I appreciate Councilor Evans raising that, and I don't know if it's too soon by the retreat to have some sense of what that might cost or what that might look like, but I hope that would be part of the discussion at the retreat.
Yeah, I think it would be nice for the directors to come with whatever they're required to receive public input on for just a simple bullet point list. If they have, for a public meeting, how many notices need to go out. We put it on paper, on boards throughout the city. I don't want a lot of time necessarily spent on it, but just a brief introduction to what potentially we are putting out there with requesting the public's input so we can delve into it a little bit further. We've always, in the years that I've been here, always looked for public input in every different meeting we've gone to or ideas. Certainly on our website, we don't hide important items. We actually put them on our front page, things that are, large ticket items or things that may be of contention or of interest. We always bring those to the top. So hopefully we can just discuss that at the council retreat and move forward as a body. So any other things for the retreat? Yeah, Councilmember Rayum.
I just want to echo back about the survey. I think it'd just be extremely valuable for us to get a better sampling of the community to find out what it is that they would like to see in their city government and kind of go from there. So yeah, it'd be great to get a quote on or an estimate of what that would cost and what you guys would recommend for the scale of such a survey. And then a couple other things. So the funding opportunity and plan for the Prop 1 projects, I guess when I read that, I was hoping we'd expand the conversation a little bit further to say, kind of let's take a step back and kind of look at the plan and talk about, the response that we've received, and that perhaps we need to go back to the drawing board on some items and go back to the public and talk about, okay, it's not 2008 or 6 or whenever the plan was written. There's been a recession since then. I think people feel differently about expenditures, and so anyhow, so I hope that we don't just focus in on just a funding plan, but we actually talk about the plan for the projects. And the same vein of thought goes for the street maintenance. I hope that we don't just talk about the pavement preservation, but we actually talk about the other issues like the beautification of the city and making it an attractive location and that type of stuff. That's not just capital projects, but more of a just a beautification, trying to make the city a really beautiful place to visit and to live. And then the last piece that I wanted to bring up was, and this kind of plays into the next agenda item, is the regional fire authority. So it said in the appointments that let's keep the people this is our next agenda item, let's keep the same council members on the RFA that we have this year because it's going to be done in 2015. And so that just kind of signaled to me like, okay, so we're going to be talking about a lot of funding type stuff, and that's definitely has implications to funding because the fire department's a very expensive portion of our budget, operating budget. And so I really hope we have that conversation folded into the other conversations, because it's kind of hard. That's a pretty big moving piece that I don't feel very informed about, and especially on a financial basis, I don't feel very informed about kind of what the implications are, and how does that play into how we decide to move forward with these other projects and maintenance and road preservation. So those are my thoughts on the retreat.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Councilmember Sandberg.
I would also like an update on the RFA process. I think the committee's been meeting for over a year now, and there are some products of that committee work. There's a equity and finance model that I believe was presented and discussed at one of the December RFA meetings. And so I'd like to have at least have that brought to us at the council retreat, or some overview of what that is, and then also talk about give us an update on the challenges and areas of agreement that have been discussed so far with the various subcommittees, and if there is an idea of when the RFA committee will complete its work and have some proposal available for our discussion and public discussion. I'd like to know that, and if we're expecting an end date on the RFA committee meetings and a product delivery date, what would be the schedule that council would be discussing the product of that committee work? So I'd like to receive a pretty detailed RFA update. Second of all, and I believe we have it in one of a general catch-all section, but I'd like us to review our vision, mission, and goals. Andy and I had an opportunity to participate in a visioning process for the East Side Transportation Partnership several months ago, and I thought it was very interesting what the consultant there had to say about how you create your vision, mission, and goal statement. And I looked at what we'd done in that workshop and then looked at our own, and I thought that that would be a good opportunity to review that. I'd also like to figure out how we can connect better with citizens and improve avenues of communication with them. I'd like to get a report on the projected revenues for downtown redevelopment, get an idea of how that's going. And I think it's also a general agenda item, but to review meeting procedures and our protocol manual. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Tom, do you have anything? I think everybody, did you? Yeah, you did
I
comment.
did. I was just going to move approval of the agenda.
Currently as written.
As written or as amended by
As
Councilmember
as written,
Evans.
I think the ideas that Councilor Evans has and that I articulated are incorporated into the agenda as it's written. So I'm moving to moving to pass the agenda as presented.
Any discussion?
I'd like to make an amendment. Oh, go.
Councilmember Rayam. There's a second by Councilmember Agnew.
I just wanted, so clarification, so the ideas that I proposed, we want to not consider those as part of the retreat agenda? Is that what the...
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I view it as being an opportunity for, I mean, what you were saying is when it's presented as I guess I took the agenda as a different way than you did, and I didn't want to get into a back and forth on it. When you said, the idea of funding for Prop 1, to me, implicit in that is you may say there's only so much funding and some of these things fall out. Or we may say we don't, we need to go back to the people and say, what are we going to do on that? I didn't view what you said as being contradictory or exclusive to how the agenda was currently drafted. So I didn't mean to reject any of your ideas. I just meant I didn't think we needed to change the high-level agenda to incorporate your particular ideas because I think I look forward to that discussion, and I think that discussion will happen based on what's there. That was my intention with the motion.
The only outlier would be the RFA. Is that something that, by approving this agenda, it would not be part of the...
No, I'm fine with having, I guess I would say that could be in the open council discussion part of it. I mean, we have really only we have two business items for the entire morning, and then we meet until 4:30. So I have no problem saying under open council discussion, and I'll amend my own motion if I'm permitted to do so, to say, under the open council discussion, have parenthetical RFA, downtown progress update, something like that. I mean, words to those effect. I'm fine with that. That would be my amendment if my seconder is okay with that. All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sandberg.
Just a clarification then. So if we're just having open discussion on that item, does that mean we can also expect staff to do some preparation on that? Or, because for example, the RFA discussion item would require some staff preparation. There is a equity and finance model that was presented by the consultant and that model and the discussion that occurred at that meeting is something that we just can't talk about. That requires some staff input.
Yeah, so I've listened to former Councilmember Sandy Gwynn for quite some time now, and I think the council retreat is an inappropriate location if we want the public to really understand what's going on in the RFA process to have it. We don't have the council retreat here, so if we want to have an open and honest government, as we all are open and honest, I think this is probably the better location to have it. Not at the retreat, but here at the dais. So if that's something that you want to schedule on a projected agenda, I think that would probably be a better place to do it than at the Public Works Operations Center, where we don't have the TVs.
And just as a note, I mean, it isn't televised, but the council retreat is open to the public if they wish to attend.
Absolutely. Everybody is invited to come, but they just don't because it's not a normal location and not a normal time. And the council retreat, as kind of the title is, it's kind of a hope and opportunity for us to come together to find common ground on certain items. As you notice in here, we do have Prop 1 items, the public spaces, parks. We didn't all see eye to eye on that. The street maintenance, these are kind of things that have been important to each council member up here, some more passionate than the other. So the whole point was to try to have a council retreat so we can have a body that works more collaboratively, potentially. And if we're bringing up a lot more subjects, it's not allowing us to have more time. It's going to allow less time and less depth. So my encouragement would be to leave the agenda as it is. If there's items that are important that we can discuss generally over lunch, let's do so. Well, let's allow staff to fully prepare for the two major items before us at 8:45 and 11. So if you're including the RFA and requiring staff to come back in your motion, Councilmember Lamb, I will not be supporting your motion.
So it sounds like both of you are asking me a question. Is that right? Or
Go for it.
Okay. So under open council discussion, I think it's important to get a take on, just to get an update from where people are at. We have 3 members who sit on the committee who are members of our council who will presumably be at the retreat. I'm not on that committee, and I would like to hear from them as well. I'd like to hear from them where the progress is. I'd like to hear from the chief as to where progress is at, and just kind of have a touch point on that issue. We haven't really, we've had it at various times, and they have reported back to us. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a deep statistical model that's going to require enormous staff preparation for doing that. I'm looking for that touch point where they can come in and engage with us. I think this is the city council's retreat. I think this is our retreat to try to talk to each other and find a common vision to help the people of Bothell. And I think during the lunch is a perfect time to get a touch point or reports on that. But in my motion is not intended to create more work for staff, because as you said, the constant frustration that people have, or some people have, is we don't have enough time to talk about something. I think the more we load onto it, I think this should be a retreat about the essentials of the city, not adding items on. So I think during lunch we can get a touch point on that. That's my hope, and I'd just like to have a chance to hear from the members, hear individually what they think about it. That's the intention of my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Evans.
Well, for the last few months, we've had a lot of requests from the public about the RFA, and tonight again, and I do sit on that committee, and I can tell you, I think it's coming. We're getting hopefully to a point here where the committee will make a recommendation sometime in March or April, somewhere in that area, I think. But in all these questions that come up, Sandy Gwynn lists a lot of good questions and comments about things that were said or whatever, everything. I just want to remind you that this is a study process that we're doing. There are no decisions being made. There are recommendations that we're discussing, and that before anything is done with the RFA, this committee will make a recommendation that each agency will carry back to their agency, the commissions, the districts, the council in this case, and make a detailed report on that. And I do think it's going to take an item on the council agenda to discuss that in detail, because there's a lot of material about that. But at this point, I get a little bit concerned when everybody starts jumping to these conclusions of what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. We're still studying the topic, and we're trying to come up with some information then that we can make a legitimate or a good explanation to, here's the option, here's what would be involved in that, and then that will come back to the council for a detailed discussion. So I think we certainly can give you a quick update as best as we can at that meeting. I'd be happy to get a copy of the equity model if you haven't already seen it. It's very elaborate and very detailed, but I'm not drawing any conclusions from that. It's all that material is still in development, and that will come back to this council. I want to reassure the public that this council will have a very detailed discussion about the RFA before any decisions made of how we move forward. But I want the correct information, not a bunch of assumptions or things coming or popping up. Until we get that information, get a report back, that's the best time really to discuss it in detail. And I would strongly recommend we do that as a council, because we will at that point make a decision. Do we move forward with this by putting it on the ballot, or do we not move forward because we don't think it's going to work because of these issues? That will be a key time, and certainly that can be done at a public meeting, have public input throughout that. But we're premature at this point to start jumping to conclusions on things when we don't have the study done and all the information. So we're going to get that, and we're going to get it to everybody, I promise.
Deputy Mayor Spivey.
Great, thank you. Just to kind of go along with Councilmember Evans, the committee and subcommittees are still going through this dance of labor and organizations still need some information from finance and from facilities, and they need information from labor and organization, but we can't give some information out till we get other information. We're still passing information back and forth so that we are building the report. And as Councilmember Evans said, we are not ready to be making decisions because we still haven't compiled all the information in our subcommittees, let alone together as a full planning committee. So, and as you said, we can give updates, but it's really putting the cart before the horse until we get at least a draft report back from the consultant, and we're not near that yet.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting, as a conversation take place, and we'll get right back to this agenda, but I thought of the composition of the council up here, and I can't think of three better people to be serving on the RFA committee. The RFA, if it exists or does not exist, one way or the other, there's still going to be firefighters and people that are every day have signed up to give their lives for each one of us here and all those watching. And the caliber of the three men that are serving on this committee, I believe, are the only three up here on the dais who've literally signed a piece of paper to say they're willing to give their life for each one of us. I don't recall, Andy, were you in the military?
No, I wasn't, but I was a volunteer firefighter.
Wonderful. Well,
years
thank
ago.
you for you as well. I didn't sign up for the military, didn't sign up for firefighting. I just went to the Christmas party, which is interesting because it was just like 3 days ago. But there's such an interesting composition of the firefighters that were within our city. They're a family, an amazing caliber of men and women that are serving us here in the city of Bothell. People of upstanding values and commitment. And the culture that they have there is one that you're just drawn to because they know they've got your back. Pretty cool thing. So, Councilmember Sandberg, hopefully that answered your question, whether there would be a grand detail or just more of a general overview. Perfect. Any other things, Councilmember Deputy Mayor Spivey? Okay.
Great, thank you. I would like to make an amending motion
Okay.
to include a discussion on a parking enforcement program in the downtown area.
I'll second that.
Would you like to discuss parking?
Can I make a point of inquiry?
Sure.
Would you be okay with that under the open council discussion period?
I was thinking about that, and I think this ends up becoming a bigger than just a discussion. I think it would end up being bigger than just that. It could probably dominate that whole open discussion.
Okay. Because if I can just offer, this will be my take on the amendment. I'm very interested in the parking situation in downtown. The concern that I have is that we're to evaluate a system like that prior to the city hall parking coming online, I think might be premature. And that's my only concern, is that I don't want to sort of have a solution that's put in place and then we're like either it's inadequate or unnecessary. So that's kind of
I'm not looking for a solution. I'm looking to start the discussion towards that, and I didn't want to ambush staff
Appreciate
with this. So that was my purpose for putting it on the agenda, so that staff at least has the heads up that it's going to come up in discussion, and that was the purpose for my amending motion.
Councilmember Ag. Or actually, no, who made the, Rayam, Councilmember Rayam? Do you want to speak to it?
No, I was just curious to want to hear what he had to say.
Okay.
I second his motion.
Councilmember Evans.
Just quickly, during the budget process, I brought up this idea, or the thought of doing a parking study downtown. That's something we'd had discussed earlier in the year in some of our downtown plans. And again, the question, the comment was made, well, we're building a couple hundred stalls downtown. Until we get that and figure out, do our inventory and things, it might be premature to do that. So I guess we can have it on the agenda, but it sounds like to me that maybe it's the beginning of the discussion, but we don't have all the information yet until we do some background research.
Just be clear, this isn't a discussion about parking stalls and number of stalls. It's about enforcement of our 2-hour parking limits and things like that. It's an enforcement discussion, not a number of parking stalls discussion.
Are you bringing this up for the point of having staff prepare something, or just that, say, we're going to talk about it?
We're going to talk about it, and if they choose to have something, to that's up to them, but I didn't want to ambush them with this discussion.
Councilmember Evans.
What are we, a couple weeks away from the retreat? Is this something that we could put on a work agenda for a month out to give them a little more time? Or, I don't know how much time it's going to take. I'm assuming it would be the police department that would prepare something on this?
Well, I don't want to create a work agenda if in our discussion we go, nah, we're fine the way it is. I would rather have the discussion and determine if we want to go that far or not. But the idea is just to have the discussion about an enforcement program.
I don't know that your motion is required because you are able to now give notification and it can be part of the open council discussion. Unless you're wanting it to be. You just want us to put on here, we will discuss, the topic will be brought up for discussion. No staff presentation is required.
No requirement.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor, amendment on the floor. All in favor, place your vote. The clerk can display. Passes unanimously. Any other comments? No? All in favor of the underlying motion as amended? You can place your vote. Clerk can display. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for that round of discussion. We look forward to January 31st to be together at the Public Operations Center. We'll be starting at 8:15 with Continental Breakfast. I believe all council members will be in attendance. Is there anyone whose council or their schedule has changed that will not allow them to be there?
I'm going to try to be in attendance via I'll try to be in attendance via Skype or something along those lines.
Okay, great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is AB 14007, which is the study session regarding 2015 council committee appointments. There's no recommended action this evening. A couple items came up to me most recently. One item was the Health District Board in Snohomish County. Breyer has the right to appoint this year, and so we as a city will stand behind them. Oh.
Can I come down for just a minute?
Absolutely.
We're in a study meeting now, right?
We are. You are free to walk about, absolutely. Great. So, Councilmember Lamb, you had also, it's interesting, I just looked at, there's council committees we all received in our packet today. I thought it'd be good to have a touch point as we're mid the commitment time for each one of us. How's it going for everybody? You still in the committees that you want to be on, or are you finding your time restraints are keeping you from being involved? So, Councilman Lamb, do you want to take the floor in that discussion?
Sure. So I'm comfortable with the committees that I'm serving on, and I'm happy to continue them. I did know that Councilor Evans had expressed a desire when we last made these assignments to serve on the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee, and I don't know if I would support him serving on that committee for the coming year, because I think he lives in Snohomish County. I think he has a long history in Snohomish County government, and I think would be a good fit for that committee for the coming year. And so that would be my only proposed change.
Okay.
I would be happy. I've thought about serving on that committee in the past, and as a resident, I would like to sit on there and give it a shot. I think Councilmember Sandberg's there now. So,
do you live in Snohomish County? I don't know.
No, I live in King County, but I enjoyed representing the city of Bothell at Snohomish County tomorrow. But I am willing to step down and allow you to serve if that is your passion.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Are there anybody else who happy but maybe looking to release their position? Councilmember Rayam.
All right, there's going to be a bit of whining here. So I have two committees, very fun, but that I'm interested in offloading. And just real quick, the reasoning why is that on top of these committees, I've picked up two additional regional committees that I'm sitting on. One is the Puget Sound Salmon Recovery Council, And the other one's the Puget Sound Partnerships, local implementation organization. They've got the longest name in the world, but basically kind of the same similar thing.
Is that through Redmond?
No,
Your job?
that's through here.
That's through here.
Yeah, well, it's through Sound Cities Association,
Okay.
sorry. And then the Puget Sound Salmon Recovery Council is, I'm the vice chair of Wire 8. So I go to that committee as well.
Okay.
So, so I have 7 committees right now, and I don't want to. If you want to do the tallying, you can, because that's how I guess frustrated I am. I've got 3 kids and a full-time job, and I got to give up a few committees. So what I'm looking to offload is the Eastside Transportation Partnership, which meets the first Friday of every month from 7:30 until 9. And then the other one is the Public Issues Committee with the Sound Cities Association, which meets the second Wednesday of every month, except a couple, the holidays. And they meet at 7 o'clock and they go till 9.
Okay. So immediately I'll just jump to the Sound Cities Association because that's the top of the list. The alternate currently is Mr. Agnew. Would you be interested in serving as the permanent?
I'd be happy to.
And Andy, would you be willing to serve as the alternate?
Yes.
Okay. And then jumping down to ETP, Councilmember Sandberg, you're already attending, and then we would have Councilmember Spivey as alternate. Would you be interested in serving as the full term?
Sorry, Mayor, the reason why I took alternate was my work schedule is such that being on a 24-hour shift, I either couldn't get there. If I worked a Thursday, I couldn't get there in time consistently, and then also having to relieve guys that just got off a 24-hour shift at 8 o'clock.
So stay as the alternate. Councilmember Evans or Lamb, would you be interested in serving as the full representative?
I'm currently serving on 4 committees of the council, so I don't think I have capacity on that regard. I'm sorry.
Evans?
No, I'm more interested in the Snohomish County committee right now, so.
Councilmember Ray, maybe since you got off the Sound Cities Association, would be willing to still represent us at ETP?
I could. One of the reasons is that I work during those that's my normal working hours, and so my attendance hasn't been that great, and it'd be better if somebody had better attendance there. I mean, I can keep on the committee if that's what the council wants, but just be on notice that I don't have a lot of available time to really invest into that group.
Okay, Councilmember Sandberg.
I've also had a hard time making that committee meeting because of work obligations. It's easier to make evening meetings, and this is a morning.
It's bright and early in Bellevue.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I work in Snohomish County, so it's almost impossible to go to that early meeting and then get to work. So.
Maybe would you be willing to serve for a few more meetings and suggest the time and meeting and location? Because they do meet very early, as I recall.
I'll look into my work schedule and see what what accommodations can be made.
Great. Anybody else looking for a change? We're all still committed to the positions we're currently serving. Okay, so it looks like the 2 changes proposed this evening were the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee would be now Councilmember Evans.
Right.
Lamb would remain as the alternate. Sound Cities Association, it was a switch between Agnew and Rayum being the alternate in the full-term position, I guess. Full representative, rather. Is there a motion on the floor to that extent?
I think it's a study session.
Yeah, I think these are coming back to us.
Oh, okay.
It is coming back. Could you just clarify, Mayor, did you say Councilmember Lamb to be the alternate for SCT? And was there a second member yet identified for ETP? Or is that
ETP, it's going to remain as it is. Rayum and Sandberg, and alternate is Spivey.
All right, thank
you. So the only change, yeah.
Seeing as I'm giving up the Snohomish County Tomorrow position, I was wondering if you would be willing, Councilmember Evans, to trade your Capital Facilities Plan Committee or Economic Development Committee position.
I think the Capital Facilities Committee Sure, I'll be happy to give that.
I know,
one.
because we don't do it in 20, but I'm thinking about 2016.
There you go, you got it. That's fine.
What about Economic Development Committee? I know it doesn't meet very often, but
No, I'd be happy to give up the CFP committee, but I'd like to stay on the Economic Development Committee.
so you'd like to give up the CFP committee that doesn't meet this year?
Well, that's one you asked for, wasn't it?
I asked for one or both, but
You got one.
And I gave you one.
We don't win all our
wow,
wars.
thanks. That's generous.
Thank you, you're welcome.
All right. So hopefully you have your clarity. If not, you and I can discuss it after.
Mayor?
So we have
Mayor?
any items besides an executive session, any city manager report or otherwise?
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
On the last topic, I was just going to recommend that, since it sounds like we're all pretty much in agreement, that just come back on consent.
It's fine with me.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Yep. Councilman Rayum.
I forgot to mention, I'm going to be in Houston on next Tuesday, so I won't be here.
Okay. We will miss you.
Thank you. I'll miss you guys.
You
too.
better not be voting for the Well, the Cowboys are out. Never mind.
I'm not voting for the Cowboys. I'm going to.
All right, so we'll be going into executive session for Councilmember Sandberg. How long do you expect the conversation to progress?
I have to ask city manager Stowe.
We'll say for 30 minutes or until 8 o'clock, and we do not expect to come back.